Hello everyone, this is episode 51 of Hashtag Beer Time. How you doing? How you feeling? I hope you're feeling good. I am feeling fantastic. Been an amazing last few days. But let's get into the show. Let me introduce my guest. He is Mr. Matthew Hirsts, and he is best known as being the founder of the Helderberg Homebrewers Club. And I would say it's the second biggest in the Western Cape, the biggest being the Southeasters. And we talk a bit about why he decided to start a homebrewing club, what he feels are maybe 3 things you need to start a homebrew club. I also asked him why he decided to stick to homebrewing and not go commercial, because he makes some fantastic beers. He's incredibly knowledgeable about beer and homebrewing. I mean, we tried his Belgian IPAs and they are just absolutely fantastic. We speak about split batches and using different recipe elements. What is a brut IPA and when is he going to make that? We get into some pretty cool stuff, and I know there's some stuff that has a lot of relevance for anyone who loves to brew their own beer. We also tried some overseas beers. He was fortunate enough, I suppose I was also fortunate enough, that he had a family member bring over some Australian beers. We tried the Unfazed by the Haze beer, which is a non-hazy IPA, New England IPA, so get your head around that. That was by Pirate Life Brewing. We also tried the Zeppelin New England IPA by Prance and Pony. And then lastly, we tried a double IPA from Cheeky Monkey Brewery. All 3 of them were from Australia, and they were all delicious. I mean, even his homebrews, they were all exceptional, and I had a great time trying them. So guys, I'll get straight into that. I hope you enjoyed the show. Let me know what you think, and let's have a beer. Cheers. You know what time it is.
What's up, beer people?
If you heard it on the Hashtag Beer Time, it's true.
It must be true.
It's true. It is fact. Please, won't you name one of your beers Cart Horse?
And just do something terrible. Just brew shit beer.
Stick your finger in there every now and again.
Stir it with a sock.
Every show, it feels like my first show.
Every show is a new adventure.
Having some good conversation here, Mr. Troy.
Did I make sense there? I think I did.
I love them all.
Are we off air?
Right, ladies and gentlemen, hello, how are you doing? How are you feeling? It's good to be talking to you once again. This is T-Bone Troy. It is Hashtag Beer Time, episode 51. Wow, it's actually been a while since I've recorded. If you've been following the podcast, I've been overseas. I've traveled little parts of the world in Thailand, and it's just been an incredible journey. I'm so stoked to be back. So stoked to be bringing you almost a different direction of Hashtag Beer Time, but more on that later. Let me get straight into introducing our guest and telling you guys why we're here. I suppose, how do we describe him? He's a homebrewer by night. He's the vigilante hero, the Cape Crusader of the homebrew world. I don't know if I'm describing it correctly, but I think we get in somewhere.
I like it, yeah.
Mr. Matthew Hirsts, how are you doing, sir?
Very well. My favorite time of day, beer time. Lovely to be here. Hello, listeners.
It's been a while. I've wanted you on the show, but I don't know, we just waited, or I suppose, to be fair, I've waited for you to get a little bit more beers into your collection. So now you've bought some delicious beers, which we're going to try today.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not break tradition or habits. Let's crack open a first beer.
Okay.
And we'll get into a little bit more of the interview style stuff. Who are you? Where are you from? But let's first discuss the first beer. What have you bought for us?
All right. So the first beer I've brought is the collab we did with my homebrew club, which is Helderberg Homebrew, and Soul Barrel, which is out in Simondium. Nick, fantastic brewer. It's such a privilege to work with a brewer like him. And so we brewed 2 beers. We brewed a clean Belgian IPA, so that's with clean beer yeast, and dry hopped with Lemon Drop, Simcoe, Cascade, and Centennial. And then we brewed a mixed fermentation beer with...
Different, whole new batch, whole new brew?
Well, we did the same mash, but we split the wort then.
Great.
And then we added the live culture yeast that he uses for his live culture beer. And then we dry hopped with Fynbos and then the same hops.
Awesome.
So it's going to be a bit funkier than when I had it last time. But I think it's going to be incredible. So we'll drink the clean one first.
Let's drink the clean one.
Yeah.
And while you're opening that up, I wonder why people aren't doing more of this. Making the same batch and kind of experimenting. You're struggling there with that. That has been...
Yeah, my Heineken bottle opener is not great.
Oh, yeah. Need a craft beer bottle opener.
One of those blades.
So there are not enough
nice
guys.
Combination.
There are not enough guys who are making these double batches or single batch and then splitting it. I think that's an absolute amazing way to learn in terms of homebrewing and what the different characteristics of ingredients do.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of what they call party gal, where you brew 2 beers, sorry about the combination.
No worries.
You take the first runnings of the wort that you've made, and then you brew a really strong beer, like an Imperial Stout. And then with the second runnings, you'll brew a normal batch of like Irish Stout.
From my research, that was pretty much stock standard of how they did it back in the day.
Yeah. And some British brewers still do it. So I'm a fan of that to see kind of how that wort operates at higher alcohols and lower alcohols. And it's just an easier brew day then as well to do 2 different beers. But I don't know why a lot of homebrewers don't do it. I think more experimentation is necessary.
Yeah.
But I think you get different kinds of homebrewers where some just want to brew for them and their friends and just have a lawnmower beer to drink, and others like me always want to. No, you need all kinds, you know. And then people like me want to do experimentation. I brewed a 14% Imperial Stout, which we boiled for 6 hours, and on the same day I brewed a.
Sure.
What was it?
You said same day. I can't imagine brewing.
Same
two
day
batches.
we brewed a 12% barley wine.
Jesus.
So it was a crazy long brew day, but I wanted to see how it went. Can I focus on both? I've still got that Imperial Stout at home, but it didn't carbonate because the yeast died.
That's the kind of day where you just block out the whole day. You don't make any morning or evening plans.
No,
that was a proper brew day.
It was a 12-hour brew day.
So when you
Cheers.
brew. Cheers. Thank you very much. Great to see you. Okay, so this is the clean
Belgian IPA.
What can you remember what yeast you used for this one?
This was I think it was the classic.
Fermentus, or was it
think it was Fermentus,
mango Jack?
No, it was definitely Fermentus.
Okay.
Yeah. It just has that classic Belgian.
You don't
character.
need to give me the codes. I'm not that. But I just, as long as we know the brand. Okay, let's go through this.
It's definitely got that Belgian estery.
I've got a very strong whiff in the beginning. I actually want to let it just kind of air out a bit. And I am now getting a bit more of that barnyard. What's the word? Farmyard.
Farmyard, but this is the clean one.
Oh, really?
I think so. I wasn't there on bottling day, so they told me this was the clean one. So we'll have to open the next one and see.
Good Lord. Maybe I'm just a little bit rusty. Let me go for a sip.
And I'm a bit sick. So. Excuse me, I can't help you.
Okay, definitely. It's got a nice sweetness to it.
To me, it's got that good. It's kind of like a candiness that Belgian beers have. Solid bitterness coming through, nice carbonation.
Residual sugar that's left behind, I think.
Not that dry. I'm brewing a brewed IPA hopefully soon, so that'll be much drier. You know brewed IPAs?
I can't claim to have tried one.
I haven't either.
Okay.
So what they do is they add an enzyme to a regular IPA, adjusting the recipe and the IBUs. The enzyme converts the non-fermentable sugars to fermentable sugars, so it finishes really dry, like below 4 points of gravity. So super dry like a Saison normally would, and then obviously your IBUs drop to balance out the bitterness. And there's not much sugar left to balance out the bitterness, so you'd want to drop your IBUs to about 20.
Champagne style.
Exactly, and then high carbonation. So very interesting style.
When are you making that?
I don't know. We were supposed to make it last Friday, but things went awry. Making it with Mike from Real Beer Revolution, and then also with Stefan from Little Wolf. So hopefully soon. Still trying to set it up. I've got 2 brewed IPAs at home that I need to try, and one actually coffee brewed IPA, which I should drink today because it's International Coffee Day.
It is International Coffee Day.
But there you go.
I think the listeners will be listening to this show tomorrow, probably. But back to this beer.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it now. It's
well balanced.
that sweetness is kind of masking that bitterness that you'd expect from an IPA.
But I also definitely get a bit of
This is
farmyardy aroma.
It's a bit of a farm hay barrel kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know what words. I'm just mumbling on a whole bunch of words now.
Horse blanket.
Horse blankety. No, but it's not pungent or
No.
intense. It's very sessionable, which kind of scares me, because then I kind of think, well, maybe there's a lot of hidden alcohol in it. What's the alcohol? Can you remember?
I think it was a 6.5%, 7%, somewhere between those two. But when I was in Belgium in December, I mean, when you go to the bars there, the alcohol started at 8-9%. All the beers.
I've heard this from Murray Middleton of Meadowland. He says when he went there, it's just like struggled to find a lawnmower beer, as we said earlier.
But like these are easy to drink, so you'll clap a few 8%ers and carry on. So they're not that heavy American.
Wake up next morning in
8%.
a trash can.
Yeah, if you're lucky, or with all your limbs. Still got your kidneys.
I'd really like this. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, we can. I've not poured myself too much, so give me a second.
Yeah, you can smash that. But while you're finishing that and open the next one, I wanted to talk to you about what the show is pretty much about today, and it's going to be focused around homebrew, or homebrew clubs. And could we give you full credit for starting Cape Town's second homebrew club?
I don't know about second.
I don't know about second. I just kind of like paused there.
But I think so.
But I said, let's talk about second, well-known or biggest, biggest homebrew club. But just to give people a bit of context, I was president of the Southeasters, which was the only Cape Town homebrew club, I think maybe 4 years ago. Yeah. And it was a bit of a mission, or a bit of a schlep for people living an hour out of Cape Town to drive in on a midweek night to kind of drink some homebrew. And I think it became a bit of a... People started losing interest very quickly. The numbers started dwindling, and I think, what the Southeasters did that was wrong. We tried to reach a far bigger audience instead of concentrating it down to a certain area. So that's what I like about Helderberg. Can you tell us a little bit about the homebrew club, why you started it? Yeah. If it was for those reasons, and who you guys started with?
So it was for exactly those reasons that I started it. I could never make a Southeasters meeting, and I was quite far from the people that I learned to brew. So I thought, why not start my own? There must be other people like me in my area. So I started it on Facebook, I think, in August 2015. So we're 3 years old now. And it was me and 2 other guys at the first meeting, and I thought, well, okay, if this goes somewhere, that's cool, but at least there's 2 other people I can chat about beer with. And then we just grew from there. Now, every month we have about 20 to 25 members. So we're growing quite well, and we get new members almost every month, which makes it difficult as well, because you want to keep that essence of why you started it, but you also want to grow. Like you say, you don't want to reach too wide. So I think it's similar to what breweries struggle with. You want to get your beer out there, but you want to stay true to why you started something. Sure. So I'm still struggling with that. I also had to start a committee. I used to do it all on my own, but obviously if you want things to grow, you need help. So it's been quite a crazy 3 years, but I think there's still lots of space for more homebrew clubs. I think there's lots of people interested in starting some in the Overberg. So I think that can definitely go somewhere. And maybe even Southeasters can split sometime. I know they've spoken about having kind of chapters.
Well, I know that the Gauteng or the Joburg group, Warthogs, they have 3 different chapters. Which I'm blown away about, just in terms of the size that they get, the numbers that they get at these meetings. And I've always held the Warthogs Homebrewers Club in high regard. And put them on a pedestal because they really are the biggest South African homebrew.
Definitely,
but kudos to them. I like the camaraderie that you guys have in your club. It always seems when there's a festival or a beer event, you guys are all there in your green logos, your caps, your shirts,
Great design on the
Yes.
logo. It's
Thank you very
incredible.
much. I wasn't trying to work that in, but
Troy did design our logo, and it's incredible. Yeah, we always get compliments. People want to buy things, even if they're not part of the club, which we don't allow. But yeah, it's really great.
You don't
yeah.
say if an outside member or a non-member wants to buy a cap, he has to join.
We keep the glasses for other people. So if someone wants to buy a glass, that's okay. But t-shirts and caps is for members. And if we go brew somewhere like Soul Barrel or Fraser, who hosted us for the festival,
It's a privilege.
yeah. So if we go somewhere where brewers host us, then we'll give them a cap as like a thank you. And you'll see
Yeah.
Fraser now wears this cap all the time.
Oh, really?
Any video you see him and he's got his Alderberg cap on. So the camaraderie is great, and I try and foster that. It's difficult because there are a lot of egos. A lot of people have a lot of ideas that they want to push through. So I try to keep it as democratic as possible, but also aware that our point is not really a beer club. It's a social club with the excuse of beer. So people come and get together and chat about beer, but it's not just about the beer. It's about helping each other out. If you need a lift or, ingredients or whatever, you help each other out. So it's not only about the beer and I brewed this and I want to be the best. It's also the reason we don't give prizes for competitions. You just win a yellow cap, like the yellow jersey in Tour de France.
yes.
You win the yellow cap and that's your bragging rights. Because
Okay.
I don't want people to brew for competitions just so that they can win prizes or
Yes.
have bragging rights forever and the cap gets passed on. I want people just to brew for feedback and to bring the beer to share with others. So it's all about sharing of knowledge, sharing of beer, sharing of experiences. A bit more philosophical than just getting together around homebrew.
I also, just to add a side note, I also feel like if you do, you tend to find certain people win a lot of the time. They're
Yeah.
repeat winners, which can cause a bit of issues and cause other brewers to lose interest. But I also feel that the winners who win all these prizes, if, for example, in the Southeasters, you find that their fridges just get stacked with these hops that they're just not using.
Yeah.
You're getting a kilogram or whatever, how many grams of hops. You're only using a small percentage, and the rest just gets chucked out one Sunday morning when you're not at home.
Yeah. When the freezer's full.
I'm not bitter. Speaking of bitter, let's move over to the second homebrew.
Yes.
And now this is a version B. Talk to us about. I'm going to expect Fynbos. What else? I am getting a bit more of a farm yield.
Yeah, so this is the one where we use the live culture mother. So the mother is the original yeast that Nick would have chucked in the barrel for his live culture beer that he brews.
Okay.
And then
Okay, so you're speaking live culture now. That's the yeast, essentially, that's eaten off the sugars, the small amounts of sugars that are in a container. Correct me where I'm wrong.
The name of the beer is live culture.
Okay.
But he ferments it in a barrel.
Okay.
So he chucks in yeast, fresh yeast in the barrel, but there is yeast already in there. So it's a mixed fermentation of Brett and whatever else is in there.
Okay.
So over time, this should get funkier and a lot more kind of Bretty.
Over time in the bottle, it should get funkier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm aging some at home.
How old is this now?
This is about probably 8 weeks old.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good,
so not that
good
old.
2 months.
Mm-hmm. But to me, I'm definitely getting a lot more Brett on this. A lot more of that dryness.
It's a lot drier than that first one. That sweetness is not gone, but it's 80% gone. It's been extracted. There's that dryness which replaces it. And
the Brett will dry beer out.
it does smell.
No time.
Does smell more. It's more sour than it is in the nose than it is in the mouth.
Yeah. So I still get a bit of sweetness on the nose. I think this is an incredible beer. I'm very happy with it. Obviously, with group brews, so in our homebrew club, we try to do at least 3 or 4 brew days a year where we do a brew all together. And that's always difficult because someone has to take responsibility and check that everything's brewing all right. So it does get a bit insane. So whenever a beer comes out well, I'm happy. I'm very happy with this beer.
You tend to start drinking when the boil goes on.
Especially at a place like Soul Barrel where all the beers are good and you need to try them all.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
Yeah,
And
so
then
we got through
repeat try them just in case they've changed.
yeah, especially with the live culture ones.
Exactly. I love both these beers, and I'll drink I'd buy them from a shop anytime,
Yeah.
or a pub or bar. But I must say, I'm leaning towards this last one that we're having.
I agree.
It's a little bit more dry. It's a little bit more sessionable.
And I think over time, because it's got a mixed cultural, mixed yeast in there, I think it's just going to get more complex, more interesting. So I think it's on its way to becoming a world-class beer.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I would ask that you please include me in future developments or batches.
I'll do that. I actually want to do a Brett kind of tasting because I've got some of Little Wolf's Brett Saison when he still had his old label. So I think they must be 2 years old now.
Sure.
I drank one the other day, very dry, very interesting. When I was in Belgium, I had a 2006 Orval, which had aged in an interesting way. I wouldn't say it was the best beer I've ever had, but it was interesting. It had faded and it was very dry, but it's nice to taste that kind of history, you know. Where was I in 2006? What was happening? So that's what I like to do if I drink an older brew. Where was I? What was happening? Same with wine. Because I don't only drink beer, I like to drink everything.
I concur and I agree. And I had my fair share of wine over the weekend. But this is not wine time, as my wife would like. But I mean, you were talking about Belgian beers now, and my mind was just racing and wondering and dreaming, which happens a lot. But I wanted to just take another step back and talk about the Homebrew Club.
Yeah.
Because, again, this podcast does kind of center around it. What are the three things that you feel are necessary in starting a Homebrew Club? And don't worry about factors of where you are or size, but from you, what are three things that you think are necessary?
I guess one of the most important things is not, I know it's going to sound counterintuitive, but not necessarily focusing on the beer so much. Focusing on bringing people together under the umbrella of beer. So don't focus on the minutiae of how do you mash.
Good word.
Thank you, minutiae.
Yes.
It's the beer.
Troy quickly Googles.
It's lubricating my vocabulary.
Yes.
Don't focus on the very technical aspects because you're going to chase away newcomers. And if you're starting something, you need those newcomers to come in because they're the passionate ones.
It's intimidating.
Yeah, of course.
Walking into a place that's, I suppose, any industry where people know a lot more about.
Well, you always assume they know a lot more, but you bring in fresh eyes on a certain angle. So we've had newcomers come in and teach us things about homebrewing or things that they do or add things because they're in a different industry that can help with homebrewing ideas, all those things. So as soon as you think you know everything, then you know nothing.
Exactly.
Kind of a thing. So I think it's important not to focus too much on the beer nerd side of things, if I can put it like that. Passion is very important because there comes a time when you love it less and people irritate you and all the egos get a bit much. So the passion keeps you going and it also helps you push the club forward in terms of what's best for the club, not what's best for your ego and trying to get the biggest, best club.
Sure.
And I think just listening to the members as well is also very important. What do they want? Which direction do they want to go? Within reason, obviously. And then I'm going to add a fourth one. Having a home base for me was very important. We meet at Triggerfish most of the time. And just having Eric's support and help. And he lets us store kegs there. He helps us keg. He lends us CO2. He gives us knowledge and talks and that sort of thing. So just having that base where we can all know, okay, we're meeting here is very important because guys know, okay, we're going to meet there.
Very similar with Greg Casey from Banana Jam.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that's where the whole Southeasters was centered around. And he's also provided, he does that wort challenge where he makes the wort and then homebrewers come in and collect it. And it's up to the homebrewers to add their hops, add the yeast, and ferment it for 2 weeks. And I think then they actually have to bottle it themselves. But and
that's a great idea. I love that. Yeah. I'd love to implement that at our club. We just haven't had time. But I think if you had to expand it wider rather than, say, have a base, if I could change that to have the support from local brewers and industry, because that's really going to get guys in and go, cool, we meet at a brewery, at a working brewery, They help us out. I'm part of this homebrew club, and we get special attention because people want that. You know, they want to be part of a group. They want special attention. They want to feel like they special. So
it
I
depends
think
on
that helps a lot.
Yeah, it's great to see, for example, you guys. I'm thumbsucking now, but I know that there may be like 5 breweries in your area, whereas a few years ago there was 1.
Yeah, there's a lot more, but we could use a lot more.
Yeah.
Our biggest problem, I think, is lack of quality brew pubs. Triggerfish was an obvious choice for us.
Yeah.
Not because I live 2 k's away, because it's a nice place to meet and there's lots of beers on offer, and Eric has a lot of experience. He's one of the first. But we don't have many other brew pubs in actual Somerset, West Strand.
We don't have a lot in Cape Town. Don't have a lot in South Africa.
Yeah, and my opinion is brew pubs is the way forward because you don't have transport costs. You don't have to worry about people screwing up.
From the brewer's perspective and the business, yes.
Yeah. You send out an IPA and the establishment saying it's a pale ale. You know, things that hardcore beer nerds would get irritated by. So I think, and you know the quality is there. You can check it for yourself. You can chat to the customer. You get instant feedback. So I don't know why there's not more brew pubs. And if I had to go into the industry now, a brew pub would definitely be a way I would go.
How often do you think about getting into the industry?
When I first started, very often, probably 100% of the
Yeah.
time. But as you kind of explore more and you understand the politics and the hurdles and the expenses around it, I think...
What is maybe your one biggest, not obstruction, but biggest reason for not becoming a commercial brewer? Opening a brew pub, opening a brewery, opening a brand.
I think for me, I have a very, I don't want to say eclectic because that's not the right word, but I'm very experimental, so I get bored quite easily. So the best kind of recipe for success is to have 2 or 3 or 4 core beers and then to have a rotating lineup of interesting experimental kind of beers. Like Devil's Peak has done that very well.
Yeah.
And they do collabs now with the smaller brewers and all that. So I would kind of follow their model of 4 core beers and then lots of interesting experimental beers. But I would focus more on the experimental beers, and I don't know if the market is ready for that. I am exploring going into markets under a contract brew basis, but I'm not in a rush because I have so many other things going. So, yeah, it's mostly that I would have this interesting beer that I would struggle to sell, and that would also, my biggest worry is that the passion would go away.
Yeah.
So because of all the pressures and the finances and the economy of it all, I would lose the love and the passion, and people would frustrate me because they just want a lager or what tastes like Castle Light, for instance. That sort of thing. So that would frustrate me.
It's an incredible amount of pressure, and I think, firstly, you and I share the same kind of sentiments in terms of getting bored. You know, brewing the same thing over and over again would be, you know, just saying it would be like incredibly dull for us.
Yeah.
But second thing, you know, tip of the cap to brewers who are actually doing it.
Sure.
Who have taken that leap. And I know it's very easy to give a brewer criticism if he's not performing well, or the brewery's not doing well, or something's going wrong.
Yeah.
It's very easy for us to sit on the outside and give that criticism. But, you know, tip of the cap, kudos to him, well done to him for actually doing something and taking that leap. Third thing, I'm going to add the third thing.
Okay.
From my side, I share your sentiments. From my side, I wouldn't get into commercial brewing just yet because I feel there's still so much more that I need to learn.
Yeah.
Especially from a quality and a brand perspective. Like, I think you and I have both been very fortunate enough to win a few homebrew awards.
Yeah.
But that doesn't qualify us as a commercial brewer.
No.
And there's just so much more that I would want to learn. If someone said to me today, Troy, here's all the money you could ever want in starting a brewery, however big, however small, I would say thank you, but let me first take 6 months to a year to whatever to actually study the brewing technique, whether I become the brewer or not. But I think that's imperative, like knowing the ins and outs of a system. And yeah, I stand by that. I would need to study some more.
Yeah, I'm planning to study some more. I'm obviously BJCP, but I'd love to do Cicerone and study a bit further in terms of that. But also IBD, Institute of Brewing and Distilling, something like that.
It's expensive,
It is expensive, but
worth it.
But it's always worth it if you have your knowledge. I mean, when I did my BJCP exam, I didn't know it was only a tasting exam. So I studied for the national exam where they give you like 4 different styles out of a choice of 50, I think.
Yeah.
And then you have to make up a recipe on the spot within the parameters of the BJCP. So I
wow.
studied for that version of the
Oh, that's
exam,
it.
and then it was just a tasting exam.
Oh,
but it's
interesting.
not a waste of time because I've
Yeah.
still got that knowledge now.
Yeah.
So learning is never a waste of time, and I think more people could learn a lot more about brewing. And like I said earlier, I think as soon as you think you know everything, then you're in trouble. So
Very true. I think people need to continue learning no matter what kind of field they're in. Let's move over to the next beers. Yeah, let's rinse our little glasses. So tell
rinse
us,
of the Brett.
you said you had some family come and visit you, so they brought you some delicious overseas beers.
Wow, we'll see if
don't
they're
have-
delicious.
We don't have the delicious. They've got a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
After that Belgian IPA.
So I find that a lot of the times I see these beers online and I go, wow, that must be the best beer ever because of the description and people raving
Yes.
about it. And you taste and you go, well, I've had local beers that are at least as good as that. So I think,
That's a good feeling for South African
yeah.
beers.
And I think there is that inferiority complex of people here where they go, well, we have to have Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, whereas there's so many Pale Ales made locally that are far more drinkable, far more refreshing, and far fresher because you're getting them here down the road. I mean, we're at Beer House. Metal Lane is, 2-3 Ks up the road?
No, not even.
Not
A
even.
few hundred meters.
So you can get a fresh Metal Lane Pale Ale. I'm using them because they're in the
Yes,
vicinity.
sure.
And their Pale Ale is super drinkable. So to kind of want to taste the Sierra Nevadas when they're 3 or 6 months old and they've been
Let's use
shipped over.
Lagunitas as an example.
Or Lagunitas.
Because they're on tap now in our...
Yeah, I think, actually.
I think they might be on... Yes, they are on
At
tap,
Beer
right?
House, yeah. Lagunitas on tap at Beer House now.
Yeah.
Um,
It's going to be interesting to see how long that lasts.
I think it will last because Heineken will pump marketing money in.
Okay.
But yeah, so there's a lot of discussion about is it a good thing or a bad thing, and I think it depends on your viewpoint of what beer should be. Should it just
Yeah.
be a really interesting, high quality beverage, or should it be something where you kind of plant your flag and say, I'm only supporting local because I want to support the
I was just going to
community?
say political almost.
It does get political because people are in 2 camps. So there's the local versus quality argument, basically. That's the 2 camps of craft beer. And I think you'll never convince one of the other. It's like trying to convince, someone who supports a certain political party that they're wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't really get into that argument because you'll never change people's minds. But I like to support local. So I'd rather come to Beer House and drink a Metal Lane because I know it's from down the road. I know Murray the brewer. I know he's passionate, and I want to support him because he's a one-man operation. So I want to support
And
his dream and his passions.
And I'm going to maybe upset a few people here, but I think the same argument can be made if you live just around the corner from SAB Newlands.
Yeah?
And if you know the brewer there. I know that in the past I used to go visit SAB Newlands on Friday to have the after-work drinks. The brewers would be there, and it'd be a happy hour kind of sorts, and that would... I don't know, it kind of has the same meaning or message, but obviously totally 2 different companies and stuff like that.
Yeah, it depends if you care about where the money goes, because
Yeah.
that is a different discussion about so-called craft beer. Where does the money go? If it goes to your local brewer, then are you happy? Or
Sure, yeah.
if SAB brews a quality beer and you know the brewer, but the money goes to AB InBev, which is a giant conglomerate who maybe strangles craft brewers in other parts of the world, does that bother you? So there's no real right or wrong. If you want to go to SAB, and I've done the tour, then it's fantastic, and to see those bottling lines is something else. So it depends on your viewpoint. There's no right or wrong. It's just where you're coming from, what you
I've
enjoy.
said that before. No matter what your viewpoint, you're not wrong.
Yeah, and I think people get too caught up in only drinking the best beers. Like you went to Thailand now. How much craft beer did you drink?
Very little.
Very little, but you still had a great time.
Sure.
People sometimes forget that you can still have a great time without craft beer. It's about camaraderie. It's about fellowship. It's about community.
Beer's still an occasion drink.
Yeah,
Depends on your occasion,
exactly.
where you are.
That's a good sound.
Let's crack open that one. What are we drinking? I've seen this brewery before, but talk us through it.
So talking about AB InBev, as far as I know, they are now owned by them. This is Pirate Life out of Australia. It's called Unfazed by the Haze.
Okay.
So what they did was they brewed what they call a New Holland IPA. I haven't found any other references to it. I tried to search for it. What it basically is a New England IPA, but without the haze. So they wanted to brew that same very fruity, very tropical, low bitterness, lots of body, lots of mouthfeel, kind of a beer without the haze.
The New Holland.
Yeah,
IPA.
it says it right there on the can. And what's also cool about the can is they have the whole brewing process on the lip, or whatever that part of that can is called.
The upper edge.
Yeah.
No, I think it's beautiful. I think beautiful design. But let's pour. Let's pour. Just a little sippy sip. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, very clear.
I'm taking what you've said and I'm going to apply it to my
Please do.
analytical. It's very clear.
Well, we have a New England IPA up next, so we can compare the two.
Just to describe to the people listening, it looks like a lager.
You could watch TV through it.
It's crystal clear. It's got a nice little head. I'm going to go for a sniff. Yeah.
Lots of citrus.
Lots of. Almost a bit of
Grapefruit.
Almost a bit of sweet cream, not
corn.
Not corn.
No.
I'm thinking strawberries and cream, kind of cream.
Yeah, I get that. Bit of spice.
Yeah, a little.
Not much malt, which is normal for a New England IPA.
Nice citrus notes in there. Okay, I'm going to go for a taste. Somewhat light, easy. Incredibly sessionable.
Quite resinous for me. It's very hoppy. It's got this. To me, it does taste like a New England IPA without the haze. I think they've done a good job here.
Yeah.
But pale ale IPA.
Pale ale. Let's look at that. Like, if you just branded this as a pale ale, I'm just going to take another sip and think pale ale.
But it is 6.2%. So pale ale doesn't really apply anymore. It's quite strong for a pale ale. Yeah, AB InBev. Yeah.
It does have that hazy aroma and feel about it, but I don't know how much of that is subliminal, how much they've told me about that on the can, and now I'm thinking about it.
You have to think about it. If you drank this beer blindfolded, so literal blind tasting, what would you call it?
It would be a New England pale ale.
That is a thing.
Yeah.
That is New England pale ale.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, look, guys. Either way, it is delicious.
It's a very good beer, but I've had pale ales that taste very similar locally. So you don't need to import your beers to have a delicious pale ale.
Yeah, this is there is that resinous sweetness, which kind of makes me think maybe not that sessionable. Maybe have two of these.
Yeah, I think the fact that we're sharing it is a good thing.
I'm happy.
I could probably have a pint or two. I agree with you. It's not quite as sessionable as I would have liked, but a very good beer and an interesting experiment. This is for me the point of craft is to, like I said, have your money makers. So have a lager, maybe an amber ale, pale, whatever, and then have your 3 or 4 that you push the envelope. And I think again, bigger breweries like Devil's Peak, Woodstock are very good at doing that sort of thing, pushing the envelope, having their core range, so appealing to kind of the people who are just coming into craft beer, and then having the revolving range of interesting beers.
Do you see maybe not a problem? Do you see an issue with that, or something that's maybe detrimental? Someone like Devil's Peak who introducing all these beers once off. Someone like we just given Devil's Peak as an example.
Yeah.
But, introducing something like a New Holland IPA. Do you think it's a bit of a craze thing that's happening? People get in FOMO if they don't have this kind of beer?
I think FOMO is a problem, and there's a big drive towards keeping up with the Joneses in craft beer. But to me, craft beer or beer enthusiasts are very similar to other people who like any sort of collectibles. So they want to get the newest beer because they want to say that they've had it and they can show the can and maybe the bottle caps, and people collect all sorts of things, labels. So, and I think that's okay. I think breweries must push the envelope and they must experiment. I think it depends how they do it. If they do proper research and do it for the right reasons to kind of explore how the hops interact with the malt. So if you look at, what's that term now? I've gone blank. Biotransformation in hops. So if you add hops during fermentation, some of the yeast interacts with the hops and transforms the aromas and flavors. So if they're doing it for that, to push craft beer forward, then that's all right. But if they're just doing it to cash in on the trend, then obviously I'm against anything just doing it just for the money. I'm against that every time. That's why our homebrew club only charges, we charge 50 Rand a month or 500 Rand a year, but then you get a free beer at every meeting, and we use those funds completely for the club. So we do club brews and we buy the ingredients of that and that sort of thing. So for me, I'm never in it to make money, and that's another reason I've struggled to go commercial, because you have to think about the money and the economics. To win a homebrew competition, you don't have to think about those things. But as soon as you're pushing out 1,000 liters and you have to sell that, it's a different story.
I think you touched on something there in terms of trends, and I think the one thing that I've learned over the last few weeks or realized and read about is that, a true craft brewer makes trends rather than follows trends. I think that's what all the big beer does, and they do very well. They have marketing, they have research teams, they see what trend is coming up and they put money into that, or they produce a beer like that. Whereas if you're a craft brewer, you're making something like
New Holland IPA, which no one else is doing.
And then SAB buys you.
AB InBev
buys you.
But I think it's okay to follow trends, but it's not okay to follow trends if it's completely weird for your brewery.
Yeah.
So like if
I agree.
a famous Belgian brewery like Cantillon, which does Cool Ship wild fermented beers, suddenly came out with a New England IPA, you'd go, what are you doing? Just go back to your little Belgian town, So I think it depends on your brewery, and it depends on why you're doing it. Like I said, if you're just doing it for the money and to cash in on the fad or the trend, then that's a problem. But I think a lot of brewers just do it for the education, and let's
it is education. It is getting that very, very small percentage of a market. Those people excited, and we're talking about the influencers, the people on social media, the beer nerds, the people who will retweet or buy the first pack.
The evangelists,
the beer keepers, who will buy that first 6-pack when it comes out. The people who cause that FOMO. So I think wrapping that up, Devil's Peak are doing an incredibly good job at introducing these beers, creating that FOMO, and then getting those people that need to be excited. They're getting them excited. And that's a great marketing technique, what I find.
Definitely. They generate the most excitement. And what I also like about Devil's Peak is that they do still collaborate with the small brewers like Metal Lane and Ukamba most recently. So, that's what craft's about for me, is collaboration and sharing knowledge and sharing ingredients and sharing equipment. I've seen lots of stories where someone will lend someone else a keg washer or whatever. And that's what it's about. It's never about us versus them, because if you think about it, us versus them is actually beer versus wine or gin or whiskey or whatever other alcoholic drink that people might be choosing to drink. It's not craft beer versus big beer. It's actually not what it's about. It's about people drinking beer. Because you'll always get different preferences and people drinking different things, but you need to have people drinking beer. And that's where we need to drive towards, and we need to band together because we are stronger in numbers. So that's my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'll piss people off now as well.
We value your opinion here on Hashtag Beer Time.
Well, I'm just getting going.
Speaking of opinions, I need to form opinion on this next beer.
Okay.
So I think we should open it. Do you mind if I have the...
No, you go ahead. Good luck with that. It's not very good.
This is the Prancing Pony Brewery.
Yeah.
The Zeppelin. All hop New England IPA, long flavor. It's got a very interesting celloist. Is that a...
I think that's a cello.
So that
it's a big violin.
That gentleman would be a celloist with a red top hat and a Zeppelin in the background.
I don't know why they call it all hop.
There
must be malt and yeast, right? So all hop.
I'll be honest, the label needs a bit of work.
Yeah.
From a designer point of view.
Okay, well you can tweet them that.
No, you can see when someone's used the generic fonts that's kind of been repeated. Sure, this they really
I did warn you.
They really
Yeah.
make you work with this bottle opener.
I did get this bottle opener free, so. Okay.
So, do you know anything about this beer, this brewery?
I don't know anything. So what I do when my in-laws come over from Perth in Australia, I contact their local bottle store and say, give me a nice 6 or 9 pack.
Oh, look
And
at you.
they set it up for me. So I asked them for the freshest. Obviously, New England IPA, you want to drink fresh. So I want to see if there's...
Why do you want to drink it fresh?
With very hoppy beers, they tend to age quite quickly, and especially the aromas of the hops dissipate quite quickly. So you want to drink it fresh so that you know what the brewer was intending, and you want to taste those flavors that he would have been tasting when he tasted it out the tank.
So it's not good to store this in your fridge for a few months. That's
No, not
what
even
you're
in
saying.
the fridge.
It's going to lose all its aroma.
Yeah.
So would a beer like this need a best before date or something more?
I at least a best before date. I'm of the opinion that a bottled on or produced on date, which most of these beers have, would be far more ideal, because for me, if you put a year... Yeah, it's there on the side.
There we go.
If you put a year on your best before on your New England IPA, then if you're drinking it 2 or 3 months before the best before, then it's far too old already.
Exactly.
So this is best before 30th of the 8th, 2019. And so I assume it was brewed on the 30th.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or bottled on the 30th of the 8th, 2018, which is recently, luckily. But if you were drinking this in
that's
June...
a presumption, so you don't know.
It is, I don't know. If you were drinking this in June 2019, then you'd probably be disappointed. I'm going to put my
Well, let's
balls
have
on the
a
line and
yeah.
say you'd definitely be disappointed. So let's see how this goes.
Okay, so it looks hazy, but that's kind of messing with my nostrils and telling me that it is little
But less hoppy than
cloudy,
the Pirate Life.
flowery.
It doesn't have that hop punch that the...
Maybe because of it's been hidden.
I don't know. I've had New England IPAs where those hops jump out at you.
This is like a little bit of a milkshake kind of.
It does say roll me like a German Weiss, which is interesting.
Okay, I'm going to go for a sip here.
Okay.
Incredibly soft.
Lovely mouthfeel.
Very smooth.
Balancing bitterness, so there's enough bitterness to carry the malt.
Low carbonation.
Not too much.
It's very juicy. Not very juicy. It's very...
It's quite juicy.
Yes. There we go. Thank you. Quite. Where would we place that? In between very and little.
Yeah.
Again, I'm trying to compare this to the Pirate Life, whereas if you took that haze away, would you get a bit of a pale ale vibe?
It's a different style for me, though. Like, that is more a pale ale
Yes.
slant towards the New England IPA. This is a New England IPA. There's
the
not
tea.
much bitterness. The mouthfeel is there. The body's a bit fuller. So
This
I
is a
wouldn't
very-
call this I would call this like, I don't know what I would call it. A New England IPA.
It's you can't fault it. It's a very
No.
well made, to the T, to the style.
I would drink a few of these.
It's
This
hitting
is a
the
good
mark.
beer. Yeah. What I also like about all foreign beers, which we don't have here, is they tell you how many standard drinks. So if you're drinking and then you have to drive, then you know, okay, if I have one of these, it's 1.7 drinks, so I can still drive after this. So we don't have that in South Africa, and I think a lot of people get caught off guard.
Well, I can tell you right now that things are changing. That
Okay.
there are new. It hasn't been approved yet by the government, but
Yep.
it has been proposed that for example, the warning label, "Do not drink and walk on the side of the pavement. Do not drink while pregnant." That is actually going to take up a bigger percentage of the back label.
Okay.
In actual fact, more, around 50%. So actually,
Wow.
not just
That is a lot.
not just 10%.
Okay.
But these are all not requirements just yet that have been put into place, but these are just suggestions from the governments. But I think one thing that I did read over was that the alcohol standards, the units that you're talking about, be introduced, and
that would make more sense to me.
It makes sense because then there's a visual aid to the drinker. That once you go, the maths is easy. Once you go over that, the total number of units that you're allowed, then you need to get a taxi home.
Or an Uber. They're so easy these days. Because I don't read those warnings, whether it's 10% or 50%. It's not going to make a difference to me. Don't drink and drive. Don't walk on the road. That doesn't make a difference. And at the end of the day, you have to have enforcement. Otherwise, you can do what you want with your labels. It's not going to matter. And my biggest problem with all liquor legislation is that they tend to punish everyone equally, whereas people who buy craft beer are probably not the people causing the problems, and that's not scientifically based at all. But you can't afford that many 30 or 50 or 80 rand beers, whereas people who are drinking the quarts and the
I would even say
liter Castle Lights, which have now come out.
I would even say, and again, this is not, I don't pretend to be a scientist or a professor, but I like to think I know a little bit about the beer industry, and I say little, but I don't think beer is the issue in terms of alcohol abuse, and I think that's where you're leaning towards.
Yeah.
I think it's more your hardtack or your cheap wines. Alcohol that's in the 10% to 20% to 30%. Yeah, we could get in a whole nother debate.
Yeah. I don't think beer. You're not going to solve your
beer
problems
might
with
lead to
labeling
something,
legislation.
but I can tell you right now, that the alcohol abuse that is so prevalent in our country, comes from it doesn't come from beer. Let's just leave it at that.
And not even alcohol; it's all social problems.
If someone wants to challenge me on that, I'm happy to open a debate.
Of course,
I think it could make for a good debate in another issue, another show. We are doing some fantastic time here. We are nailing these beers. This one's gone down a treat.
I'm loving this one. It might have been nice as a first one, actually. Like an introduction to the
Can I
hoppiness.
have that little intro? Are you enjoying the show so far, Matthew? Are you having a good time?
I'm having a great time.
It is a good time. I mean,
I always knew I would have a great time when I eventually came on the show.
We've done this before, drinking beers, but now we're just recording it, which is
better.
It's just another day. It's just another drinking day.
And I am a subscriber, and
thank you, sir.
I think more people should listen to podcasts, maybe start their own podcasts, not as direct competition to you, but kind of get their opinions out there, or just chat to their friends and drive the discussion.
I would love it if someone else started a beer podcast.
Other than Murray.
And Murray, of course.
Yeah.
But,
the mash tun.
Yes, but we need, already at the moment, I'm podcasting on beer, which is, craft beer at the moment is a very niche market. Now I'm talking about podcasting in South Africa on beer. That's
even
a
more
niche. It's like so many levels below. So we need as many guys as possible to get into this industry.
But you know what? Even if they don't podcast, we need people to drive discussion around beer, because it's okay if you just 80% of the time chug beer and that's all you want to do is just drink beer because you've had a hard day or whatever. But you need to sometimes have these discussions about beer and the beer industry, especially if you're passionate about supporting local brewers. Because I find a lot of people think of craft beer in black and white. And that's not the case. There's lots of gray areas. There's lots of nuance. People come from different angles. So you need to discuss that with other people, even if it's not your friends, if it's people you see drinking mass-produced lagers that you don't agree with. Have a discussion with them. Bring them in. Because if you are aggressive and say, you're drinking that cup beer, then you're going to chase them away. And that's not how craft is going to grow.
Yeah, no, it needs to be inclusive and guiding. But like we said earlier, everyone's got their own opinion.
Yes.
What's craft beer, what's not craft beer. But
Yeah.
no matter what, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're entitled to your opinion, and it's, you've got you'll have some credibility behind what you believe in. Or hopefully. Hopefully the show has some credibility.
I think so. I've listened to it and I think it has a lot of credibility.
Thank you.
The guests you've had on all know what they're talking about.
Except for the host.
Come on, Troy. But I think that's one of the reasons I'm moving away from the term craft beer is that it's so easily abused. And it's such a generic term. So a lot of people go the volume argument. As soon as you get big, you're no longer craft. But I have a few issues with that. One of them being, as soon as you brew a liter over that limit, suddenly you're not craft. How does that make sense?
It's ridiculous.
Secondly, if you look at a lot of the overseas brewers like Dogfish Head, who are massive, but still brew amazing beers, Beavertown, those sorts of brews. And thirdly, if you bring 50 liters a month, but it's all infected or terrible, does that make you a craft beer? No.
Yeah.
So I think we need to steer clear of the volume argument, but we also need to steer clear of one single definition, because like I said earlier, it depends on why you want to support your local brewery or support beer in general.
Can I tell you what's so difficult? And I fully agree that craft has been abused.
Yeah.
And I'm also on this, I'm leaning towards, I'm on the side of getting rid of the definition craft because it has been abused. But here's the problem, is that we're still only a very small percentage in the, can I say craft beer? No. Or the beer enlightenment, the people who know.
People who know what the hell you're talking about when you say craft beer. About.
But I don't know what it's like for you, but I often get, sometimes get people asking me whether it's people in the media or people, friends of distant family or whatever.
Yeah.
They still ask the question, but what is this craft beer thing? And you can't say, no, it's nothing. Let's not use the word craft.
Of course.
Can't have that. You can't begin to try and describe your road because I think for you and I, our definition changes a little bit every single day.
All the time.
So you have to come up, I've realized you have to come up with an answer to give to the unenlightened or the
that's a harsh term.
No, but the
less informed. I think.
The less informed. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I don't mean any disrespect.
Of course, I know what you mean.
But you have to kind of come up with an answer that is evolving with the times, but can still not intimidate or scare and give a responsible answer in terms of what you feel is craft.
Yeah. And with so many things in life, it depends on your audience. So I'm not going to say, are you reaching for the next beer? I'm not going to say, I'm moving away from craft beer to my mom or my uncle or whatever, because they're not exposed to that sort of thing. Yeah. So I'll still talk to them about craft beer and the interesting things happening. But to people more in the know, like yourself or Mike from Real Beer Revolution, we kind of move and then we're the early adopters and then everyone moves with you maybe in 3 years or 5 years. It doesn't really matter. It's more about driving the discussion.
I'm reading a book at the moment, and the one thing they talk about is a mixed martial artist teacher who has a less than, equal to, and greater than approach in terms of wrestling, learning to wrestle or MMA, for mixed martial arts with someone else. When you wrestle with someone less than, you are teaching them. When you wrestle with someone on equal terms, you are learning to better yourself. Well, you're challenging yourself to fight someone on your level. When you're fighting someone greater than you, you're learning from them. I almost feel that can be applied to the beer industry, where no matter where you are,
of course,
there's always going to be someone above you.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone, hopefully on equal terms, sitting across the table from you. And there's always going to be someone less than you that it's your responsibility to educate and to teach. And that's all I have to say about that.
And one of the reasons, so I was very into craft beer and then I took a step back because I got a bit jaded. One of the reasons for that is that people tend to say, we want everyone to get into craft beer, but then they keep their best and favorite and special beers for themselves. Now, I understand you don't want to share...
You're talking about when you get a beer from overseas, for example.
So like the beers we have here. So I understand you don't want to share necessarily with people who won't understand
Yeah.
the beer that you're giving them. If they're only a lager drinker, do you want to give them a New Holland IPA or whatever?
Not a chance.
But but how do you bring them into the fold if you're never sharing these special beers with them?
Yeah.
And is the beer going to be worse if you share the beer with them? No, you've just shared them and you can educate them.
Yeah.
So that whole kind of dichotomy in the craft beer world of we want everyone to drink craft beer, but we don't want to share the interesting special beers with everyone really bothered me. And it still bothers me because it's still very much going on. There's still very much niche groups of you can come, but you can't come sit with us. And that bothers me a lot, and that's not what beer's about. Beer is a social drink where everyone must come around, have a braai, have a drink, share a good time. But it's difficult. You don't want to share your 500 rand beers,
But I would certainly not drink a 500 rand beer on my own.
No, me neither.
No matter how big or how small.
Hence, yeah.
And I do have some very delicious beers that I've kept for like 5 years.
Yeah.
That you need to actually keep that long. But I could never imagine drinking that on my own.
No.
Like I have to invite someone, at least 3 people, even if we get like 100 mils out of each.
But you're still in the minority. So there's a lot of people drinking the beer so they can post to social media and say, look at the beers I'm drinking. Which is one of the reasons, and maybe I just focus on that side of things a bit much, but it's one of the reasons I took a step back, because it's also why I started Helderberg Homebrew Club, to bring people in and say, look, it doesn't matter what kind of beer you brew. We're going to help you brew better beer, and we're going to drink nice beers together, and we're just going to have a good time together. And that's what beer's about for me at the end of the day, just having a good time together, driving the conversation around beer, but not getting together because of beer necessarily. So I know they sound like opposites, but it's a
lot of
tight road
correlations
to
and
walk.
a lot of stuff that you can join in. But I will say cheers to that. And that is a great way to not end the show, but open our final
Next
beer.
one. Cheeky Monkey.
This is a fun and vibrant double IPA for spring, pine, resin, passion fruits, and pineapple on a light malt base. Enjoy. Cheeky Monkey. Do you know anything about this?
Double IPA from Margaret River. It's actually a wine region in Australia. Also brewed very recently, just released. 8.8%.
Yo.
Yeah. Let's see what else they have to say here.
Beautiful can, I would say.
Oh, this is brewed with rainwater, which is very interesting. There's not a lot of breweries. I have a home brewer friend who brews with rainwater. He never had any issues, so that's quite interesting.
I'd imagine if they say that, then they wouldn't... Would they adjust it with some chemicals?
Probably, but I'm assuming now.
Because now if it's just water, then it's been altered.
Yeah.
If it's rainwater, you're taking it straight from your collection point and putting it straight into the boil.
Well, you can still adjust it, so they might get it tested. I don't know. They say they brew in small 1,000-litre batches. So
Anyway, I'm not obsessed about that.
But what's nice about this beer is it has a produced on date, which is the 4th of September, which is less than a month ago.
Just less than a month ago. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. But the best
Show
before...
me, so we can see a best before.
The best before is the 4th of September next year. So again, if you're drinking this in June or July, you're going to be disappointed. So that's why I would ask for bottled on or produced on dates rather than best before, because a year is too long.
Hopefully, there are brewers out there, and I say hopefully, but there are brewers that are listening in and around South Africa who actually start adapting this to their labels. And it's such a small thing, but I really feel that it have massive returns.
I think it's an expensive thing. So I think that's probably the problem for most brewers, because
there's a bit of labor involved there.
Craft brewers is, most of them are bootstrappers. They just do what they need to do to get the beer out. So that's a tough part, but I think it's so important, and I think going forward, more and more consumers are going to skip beer. And I get nervous if I see an IPA on the shelf. Like if you take Agar, for instance, they're not distributing anymore.
Yes.
So if I see Agar beers in a bottle store, I don't buy them because I know they're reasonably old, because he's not sending bottles out there anymore. So I think more and more people will move towards that kind of awareness of how long ago was it brewed, was it old, and that's also why it's important to drive the discussion so people know what an old beer tastes like. Is this what an IPA should taste like?
Yeah.
Because we've all been to bars where you have a off beer or a bad beer or an old beer, and they say, but that's craft, that's what it should taste like. So it's obviously up to the bars to educate their staff, but it's also up to us to know what an old beer or what an IPA should taste like. So it's an education
It's a constant
issue
education.
on both sides. So on the service side and on the consumption
And
side.
from, I suppose, the what do you say, the guardians of the beer industry. I think Murray Slater said that we are the current guardians of our industry right now.
Of the oldest beverage, I
Yes,
think. Yeah.
I really like that.
Very philosophical.
I hope he doesn't mind me using that, Murray. I hope you don't mind, but it was a beautiful line.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go read some of the Beer Whisperers comments on his page.
Not as much bitterness. Sorry, I just took a sip of this
We're going
double
on to the
IPA.
cheeky monkey. It is a double IPA.
Yes.
So when I think double IPA, I'm thinking high alcohol. I'm thinking strong, not intense, but strong hop flavor. And I am expecting a bit of sweetness, that resin sweetness, to kind of back it up.
Which is happening. I expected a bit more bitterness because of the double, but it's there. I think it's a well-balanced double IPA.
It almost makes it like a... Because that resinous, that sweetness is not overpowering. It is heavy,
Yeah.
and it's weird. It almost makes the bitterness go away, which kind of makes it feel like a pale ale.
Exactly.
But maybe our palate...
9% pale ale.
Maybe our palate is kind of... Maybe our palate's a little bit tired after drinking all these beers, but I still feel like if you gave me like a King's Blockhouse now,
Yeah.
that would overpower this one, this double.
think
IPA.
so?
In terms of the bitterness,
I don't think so.
you don't think so?
I think
We should
I
we
had
get one?
I had an unfiltered Blockhouse here the other day, and I think this is definitely more bitter. Bitterness is always relative, so
Yeah.
it's hard to say without drinking the Blockhouse next to it. But I think that malty richness and the hoppiness probably overrides the bitterness. But you would still find Blockhouse to be less bitter. But we'd have to taste it next to it. So a lot of people... So let's talk about the Castle Light gold medal controversy, because this is a good segue.
The good segue
So-
and a good way to end the what little time we have.
Okay, so I'll speak quickly then. I'm a business partner in the South African National Beer Trophy, and this year we had entries from SAB, and Castle Light won a gold medal, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding that. So the thing about any competition that I've ever judged is that they've all been judged very blind. So the beers are poured in a different room, you don't know what beers are being served.
As they should be.
As they should be, yeah. So if a beer is brewed to style, then you will award it a high mark, and then it will win an award or a medal or whatever the competition awards. So there was a big controversy surrounding Castle Light, but SAB know exactly what they're doing when they're brewing that beer. It's supposed to be malty and a little bit sweet and easy drinking, and they do that very well. That's why they became big.
Sure.
And that's not popular opinion with the craft beer industry, but that is unfortunately the reality. Well, unfortunately is now, again, relative.
Sure.
So I think it's important that people understand that the way beer competitions are judged is that you judge to a certain style, and it's not lager over IPA. It's lager versus the style guidelines.
Sure.
So, yeah, Castle Light, the other issue I had with the controversy is that it took away from all the small brewers that won the gold. And they needed all that publicity because maybe they're a one-man operation and they worked really hard to get consistent good beers out there. And now everyone's shouting and moaning about Castle Light. If you say you support local brewers, maybe you should be promoting them that won a gold medal rather than shouting and screaming about Castle Light.
How does a gold medal work? Is it the best of that category?
It's the best of all categories, so we limited to about 10%. So we had 212 entries this year. We had, I think it was 24 golds, so a little bit over 10%. And they have to score over 40 points out of 50 on the BJCP scale, which is very high.
So you have to get over 40 in the mix. You get a gold, but then the best. So I presume Castle Light got the best of show in the lager. Best of lager.
No, they just won gold. They didn't win best of show.
Okay, so they just won gold. Okay.
Yeah. So it was a big storm in a teacup, I would think.
It didn't really take away from anyone.
No, but the surrounding controversy kind of took away from people because everyone focused on Castle Light winning gold. Whereas they could have said, cool, these brewers who are really small and bootstrapping their operation won gold as well on an equal level to SAB, which is amazing.
Yes.
Also won gold. Let's celebrate them rather than wondering why Castle Light won a gold.
And didn't Black Label win the People's Choice?
They won the People's Choice last year and this year, and I think it's a good reminder that most people drink Black Label due to economic and preference reasons, and that's okay. And again, you won't necessarily always convince them that they want to drink craft beer, and it's just good to share a beer with them and have that discussion rather than alienate them from beer forever because you think they're an idiot for drinking Black Label.
I did have a little chuckle though when I heard that they won again, because you tend to the whole joke around Black Label is that all the awards on their label are Black Label awards.
Yeah,
like the beer is called Black Label, but the Black Label award for best beer goes to Black Label.
Yeah,
and that's a long time running joke in the South African community. But I found it quite entertaining now that they can put on the People's Choice Award at Beer House, National Beer Trophy, and a different kind of award, someone external from the actual corporation.
So the other thing that counted against craft breweries is that there was so much choice that there was about 15 or 20 different breweries that were voted for, beers that were voted for, and Black Label was one.
Yeah.
So they benefited from lack of choice. So that's interesting in and of itself that Black Label benefited from a lack of choice. So the other lesson here is people must go out and vote. If you believe in something, you must go and do something about it. You can't just talk about it or complain after the fact. You have to go out and support your local breweries and get other people in and get them to vote and all of that. If you want to see things change, you have to make the change yourself. So I think we have a lot to learn in that regard as well. Not just sitting back and wishing things would change. I think we need to change things ourselves, and I think people underestimate how much power they have
quite
to
prevalent
change
in our
things.
country as well, with people a little bit lazy.
Yeah,
a lot of sofa talking, whereas less doing. And I think if we can draw a summary from this episode, it's you need to do.
Yeah.
If you want to, you need to be doing rather than being.
Yeah. If you have an idea, go out and try it. If it fails, these days with social media and digital things that you can do, it cost me nothing to start Helderberg Homebrew Club.
Yeah.
And okay, a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, a lot of passion. But that's all. No financial outlays, nothing like that. Some contacts, but that's all. So if you have those things, you can execute your idea. If it fails, figure out why it failed, pivot and move on to the next idea that you may have. So always execute. Otherwise, you just have these ideas and no one cares if you have an idea. You have to get it out there to the world so that they can also join in your passion.
And if you're a brewer about to start, you must do, but get some training behind you.
Get consistency. That's the number one. Consistency will pull you through.
I think this is a great place to kind of wrap up and to end. Can you believe it? We've been going for over an hour, whereas we were worried we wouldn't make half an hour.
I wasn't worried. I bought enough beer for an hour.
You bought some delicious beers. I will say congratulations on that IPA, the Belgian IPA, the second one. It was standouts. In terms of these overseas beers, I did like... Look, I liked all of them.
Yeah.
And I can't give... I think the Pirate Life was different, but I think for the style, the Zeppelin from Prancing Pony Brewery, in terms of stylistic accuracy, I have to kind of lean towards that one, even though the label is a little bit dodgy.
Prancing Pony.
Yes, a little bit dodgy for me.
But if I had to sum up these overseas beers, is that they were all phenomenal.
Yeah.
And there was nothing wrong with any of them. But I've tasted very similar beers made by local breweries.
It's true.
Don't worry about getting overseas beers. Rather support local beer that you can get fresh, because the local breweries...
And it's here now. We've
arrived.
Kanako. We're like, yeah.
And if you know your local brewer and you know that they're putting out consistently good stuff, support them rather than spending 4, 5, 6 times as much trying to get in overseas beers, because you'll get it fresher, the quality will be the same. With wine, it's different because you have a terroir, so you have your grapes that grow in a specific... Once a year. But with beer, they all have access to the same malts, the same hops, the same yeast, so they can make an equally high-quality beer. So rather support your local brewery. I've had fantastic local beers that are better than overseas beers that I've had. So these have been fantastic, but...
And support your local homebrew club.
Yes,
if
do
you're
that.
Interested.
If you're interested, come down to Helderberg, or if it's too far for you, go to Southeasters.
Or start your own.
Or start your own, if you're too far.
Maddie, thank
Troy,
you.
It's been fantastic.
I had a lot of fun. Let's get you on the show again, because something tells me I need to drink more beers with you, but also...
I've got a lot more to drink, as my wife will tell you.
I feel that you've got a fridge. I think we share the same kind of traits. We've got wives at home who just want to get that beer out.
Yeah.
But Maddie, thank you so much. And I think that's a great place to wrap up. I've had a fun time. I've enjoyed these beers.
Yeah.
To everyone listening, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you had a great time. I hope you're thirsty for beers. I hope you're thirsty for local beers.
Yes.
Hit us up. Maddie, where can people reach you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Beer Club SA. I'm starting a new thing with Mike from Real Beer Revolution called Points of Brew. We're probably going to launch next week. We're hoping to launch this week, but we're hoping to take the beer world by storm a bit. So look out for that. Otherwise, Beer Club SA. Otherwise, in the Helderberg, drinking beer, wherever there's good beer to be found.
Catch him at Triggerfish.
Yeah, every third Wednesday of the month.
Cool. Guys, thank you very much again. Maddie, thank you, and we'll see you guys again soon. Ciao, ciao.
Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to the show. One last thing before you take off. I've created a Patreon account. What is Patreon? Patreon is a website dedicated to artists creating content, and it gives them a platform to be able to get paid for their content. So no pressure to you guys, to my friends and my fans, but this kind of thing does help me to continue to grow and to continue to give you good content and to actually take this brand and what I'm doing to the next level. And I've got so many plans that I'm so excited to bring to you. So if you have a few minutes and if you have an extra buck to spare, I'd really appreciate you just going checking it out. But you can go check it out at Patreon and just type in hashtag beer time and you'll see something there. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for listening, guys and girls. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Just search for hashtag beer time. That's hashtag beer time written out in full. Hope you enjoyed the show and check you next time. Cheers.